It is Monday the 23rd of the 6th, 2025. The time is 20 minutes past 8, meaning therefore there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. We'll go through some slides. King George Russell settings. So too, we'll talk about Lando Norris. Mark Hughes has penned an article that I think is significant when we're talking, passing the probability that one of the boys or girls of McLaren are going to win the championship of the drivers' variety. He has a name, of course, and his name is Oscar Piastri. What do you mean? But Mark Hughes talks about why causation settings. So too, we'll talk about Frederick Vasseur and John Elkann. We'll talk about Toto, the boy who cried wolf, who's come out and had something to say about culpability, team ethos. What are you talking about, Toto? Give that boy George a contract, sir. And the main event, of course, we'll talk about Maximilian Verstappen and what this simulator test driver over at Aston Martin has told the Natchez YouTube channel that Max Verstappen must stay at Red Bull if indeed he wants to win races and therefore championships. Go on then, in the first instance, let me show you guys some pictures because it's been a break, hasn't it? And drivers do things in their break apparently. That is Fernando Alonso celebrating the promotion of his team, man from Oviedo, Asturias, and that's his team, Real Oviedo, getting promoted to La Primera División. Oh, the humanity. Here's Oscar Piastri doing Oscar Piastri things. Looks a bit dapper, does the chap. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, to be fair. Fashionista settings, again, potentially seen to be first-time champion in 2025. Oh, the humanity. Speaking of the four soon-to-be five-time champion, there's Mr. Max Verstappen doing what Max Verstappen does, eh? And to that point, one Emerson Fittipaldi has said that he thinks about Max Verstappen under the umbrella heading of Ayrton Senna. He says, I go back to Ayrton Senna and compare his driving style to Max Verstappen's. It is similar. I think what's most impressive about Max Verstappen is that he's able to utilise 100% of the car. Glaze, Cameron. But I can't tell me that because those aren't my words. Those are Emerson Fittipaldi's words, one-time champion, if I recall correctly. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about the next one up, here's Kimi Antonelli, graduating from high school. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing here? How is an F1 driver even allowed to be so long? Whatever happened to the Max Verstappen rule? That dude is too young. He looks too young to be a quality F1 driver. But at the altar of his pole lap the other day, he could potentially be the next one. Speaking of the next one, that's Antonelli, the dude who supersedes one Lewis Hamilton. The guys and girls, the nerds and virgins over at F1 Reddit are complaining about clickbait. However, I think I can curse on this occasion. They're saying that this headline, per the guys and girls over at Planet F1, that Lewis Hamilton breakthrough imminent as shock cancer diagnosis revealed, is probably a bit too much. And I would concur, sir. Lewis Hamilton, the breakthrough portion of that stanza is alluding to upgrades potentially. Frederick Vasseur, his future over at the red team with the yellow badge and black prancing horse atop. The shock cancer diagnosis alludes to Steve Rye, the legend of sports presentation settings, potentially, apparently being diagnosed with cancer. And if we're talking about Sir Lewis Hamilton, Toto, the boy who cried wolf, came out and reneged about Lewis Hamilton's ability. He was the one who once upon a time said it's important for drivers and all related parties in Formula One that they maintain a cognitive sharpness, and that can sometimes dim with Father Time, with age, since Father Time is undefeated, undisputed, pound for pound, has never ever lost a round. Now Toto, the boy who cried wolf, has got something else to say, backing his longtime friend Sir Lewis Hamilton, saying that your skill, you don't just lose your skills. And whilst I would concur, sir, you don't just lose them, but they do tend to dim over the time. Why? Because again, for the avoidance of doubt, with a view to not labour the point, Father Time is and always has been undefeated, undisputed. Here's what Sir Lewis Hamilton, and they will come for me here. They will tell me to stop talking rubbish. Allow me to disbelieve the evidence of my own eyes and ears, Sir Lewis Hamilton fans and stans, Mama Cameron will say. But here's the evidence, chat. Lewis Hamilton isn't having a great time with it. Now, of course, you've got to normalise for the fact that he doesn't have the car underneath him. He hasn't had a sniff, in the words of James Allen, of a 25-pointer, a race victory. So there you never see Sir Lewis Hamilton, fire-breathing Sir Lewis Hamilton. However, That's 12 races. Look at this stat and tell me what you think. I think it's significant, worthy of mention. The Hamilton is currently on his joint longest career streak without a podium, having also gone 12 races without one between Brazil 23 and Canada 24. Now look, since 24, P12, look at that. Bloody Nora. P12 Bahrain, P4 Abu Dhabi, P10 Australia. Mate, nowhere, chat. Not good enough, is it? Now, if you throw the Chinese Grand Prix sprint race in there, then it's a different thing altogether. But we're talking Grand Prix proper here. And I think as far as Sir Lewis Hamilton's concerned, Houston, we have a problem. If indeed you dine at the restaurant of objectivity and truth value, what we will never do on this channel is sacrifice those two things at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the moniker. Oh, and by the way, F1 movie settings. I keep hearing different things about this movie, chat. I was listening to the guys and girls over at the race, Ed Straw settings, and he said it's a bit techie. I don't want to spoil, but he said sometimes they get lost the way they sacrifice the plot at the altar of complexity, nuance, talking too much about tyre strategy. I mean, these things, if you do them well, sports film, Senna, biopic, if you do them well, they don't need any translation. You shouldn't need footnotes or addendums, and it sounds like these guys have got lost in the complexity, but they're out and about today. There is a London premiere, just as there was a New York City one at Radio City Times Square, and there's turning out. This is Tate McRae. I don't know who that is or what part she has to play in the movie, but I thought that was worthy of mention. So too, let's talk about Lando Norris. There's a really, really good article on Motorsport magazine. Shout out to friend of the channel, Matt Bishop. Shout out to Mark Hughes, one of the goatiest F1 journos to have ever goated. And they are all created equally, but some are created more equal than others, some say. In there, he talks about Lando versus Oscar. He talks about the differences between them. Now we can go through ad infinitum in perpetuity now, that Lando is more impetuous, more emotion driven, doesn't take a step back from the F1 woods to see the F1 trees, whereas Oscar Piastri lives here, an automotive pugilistic stoicism, if you will. Mark Hughes writes, there's a couple different examples over the course of the 10 rounds that we've had season to date that you can point at that shows you in clear blue who Lando Norris is, and the difference is what he doesn't have that Oscar Jack Piastri has. It's techier than techie things. He highlights Bahrain qualifying. Let me read it. I'm going to read it out verbatim because it's important. This John Benzi, Mood, Easy G. It's important. Really, really good evidence-based article. Let me read it out verbatim. Mark Hughes of Motorsport magazine says, even in Bahrain, even Bahrain contains a small detail which skews the picture. On their outlaps for quali, for their Q3 attacks, they were running in formation. Piastri was ahead, taking the early part of the prep lap very easily so as to not have the tyres overheat during the attack lap. At a certain point, quite late in the prep lap, they were both instructed to build pace to ensure the front tyres were not too cool at the start of the lap. Norris did so. Oscar Piastri did not, as Norris found himself now too close to the other McLaren, so he had to back off to create a gap so as not to be in its dirtier. As Norris backed off, then all of a sudden, what do you think OJ Piastri did? Built the speed up and so the tyre temperatures with a view to begin his lap. Lando Norris arrived at turn 1 with his front tyres typically under temperature, got a lot of understeer which flicked into oversteer as the fronts finally bit. That was Lando Norris's lap ruined. This is automotive pugilistic chess, ladies and gentlemen, not checkers. If you're talking about performance in absolute terms, which one of Lando or Oscar is faster? I'm going Lando every single day of the week, but you don't win championships just because of your pace. It's so much more than that. I would argue 80% is here, and this is where Oscar Piastri has it in buckloads, has time to spare, advantage in his back pocket over Lando. There is brinksmanship. It's a bit techie, this. Techier than techie things, some may say. Mark Hughes continues, and he elaborates on the difference in their emotional mindset. You've heard Andrea Stella saying of Oscar Piastri that there is zero mind noise. He's here, ladies and gentlemen, focused on one thing, and that thing is winning a driver's championship. Not next year, not in a couple of weeks' time. Now he's looking to do everything necessary, requisite to get himself what he wants, what he's been dreaming of. Here's what Mark Hughes says. But perhaps the most important thing for Lando to do after he resets in the wake of what happened in Canada is to come back with a clearer head. Do you see that? Come back with a clearer head. Oscar Piastri doesn't need to come back with a clearer head because his head is always clear, ready for war at the altar of a driver's championship. It will be won or lost on this battleground. Mental fortitude. And if I'm putting money down, if I'm a betting belligerent degenerate even, my money's going on Oscar Piastri every single day of the week. Mark Hughes continues. There's been an emotion as far as Lando Norris in several of his incidents which made out for bad decisions. Several instinctive moves have been the wrong ones, putting himself at the mercy of Max Verstappen on the opening lap in Miami, for example, or indeed staying committed to the left of Oscar Piastri in Montreal on days when he's been potentially the quicker McLaren driver. If Lando Norris is playing chess, not checkers, he would have watched 2011, the incident between Button and Hamilton that was twin of the one that happened a couple of weeks back at Canada. He would have known that. Why are you going up the inside there around a part of the track that curves? Like, it was very similar to Austria last year. And again, as far as Austria last year, the incident between Lando and Max, if Lando had watched a couple of years ago the instance, the overtaking manoeuvre between Max and Carlos Sainz, he would have seen exactly what Max Verstappen did to get around the outside of Carlos Sainz. Then he would have banked it and been playing 4 moves ahead. But he, sadly, is not. Now, Lando Norris fans, stands extremists will come for me, but this is just the truth. And we won't sacrifice truth value nor objectivity at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the moniker. Mark Hughes continues. Several instinctive moves have been the wrong ones, putting himself at the mercy of Max Verstappen on the opening lap of Miami, for example, or indeed being on the wrong side of Oscar Piastri at Montreal. By contrast, Piastri on days when Lando Norris has had his number has parked any emotion of that, able to just resolve to maximise himself, of course, at the altar of winning a championship with the driver's variety in 2025, regardless, continues Mark Hughes, of whether that is less than what Norris can do on the day. All that Oscar Piastri cares about is optimising for his circumstance, and so his probability of winning a championship with the driver's variety. On the few occasions that's happened, continues Hughes, Piastri has sometimes prevailed anyway, because Lando Norris has inflicted his own penalty upon himself. Oh, the humanity, chat. I'm telling you, it's going to get techier than techie things between those two. Let me read out this final bit of Mark Hughes because it's got to. Piastri has so far displayed a greater clarity of thinking. That is really the essential difference between the two of them thus far. If Norris can correct that, there are probably more gains to be had for him than trying to squeeze out yet more speed. The speed side may even be taking care of itself. The speed side may even be taking care of it. I don't know. I've cut off piece of this. I'm going to have to abort this chat. Your boy's not prepared. You get what Mark Hughes means. It's good. It is. Here's what he's saying. He's saying that the upgrades that they put on the car, put on Lando's car at the very least, that Oscar chose to turn down, may have taken care of some of Lando Norris's speed difficulties. You know that Lando struggled with the MCL 3.9 and its handling dynamic. This car is a bit more understeery than the MCL 3.8, and it's a bit less as far as its feedback. And Lando's spoken on a gazillion occasions that he needs the feedback through the steering wheel. That's it. That's always been how he's activated his upper echelon's potential. That's what Lando. Peter, you're a legend. Thank you for becoming a member, sir. And get yourself over to the Discord on the community tab. That's what Lando needs. Feedback through the steering wheel. He needs a front nosy car, not just like Max Verstappen, but inbuilt by dint of the ambitious nature of the anti-dive and anti-squat. you have less feedback. This car is more understeery than was last year's, and so it does one of these. It leans more in the favour of Oscar as far as his driving style. Lando has spoken about trying to mitigate for that, trying to get more feedback through other bits of the car and the bloody steering wheel. That's why he has the upgrade and Oscar Piastri does not. It's going to get techier than techie things between these two. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about Frederick Vasseur, it's a Jomo. It's about to get techier than techie. We've been talking about this, right? That article, those articles, 2 articles were released in the Italian press and media, which is always going to be techier than techie things. The Italian media do what the Italian media do. It's conjecture and speculation. It's politics. If you are losing at Scuderia Ferrari, the red car with the yellow badge, black prancing Corsa top, then you know what time it is. You will get 3 years, 4 years max. This, for the avoidance of doubt, is Frederick Vasseur's 3rd year of his tenure as team principal of Scuderia Ferrari. He needs to win something, or at the very least come second in the Constructors' Championship. Otherwise, the likes of John Elkann will look to supersede him as TP with, I don't know, Christian Horner, say, anybody else. You don't have time. Don't believe me? Well, look at the past. And if past is prologue, Mattia Binotto didn't get long, 4 years. Adi Rabena, same thing. Mattiazzi, same thing again. You don't get long. And especially when it doesn't look good on the surface. Losing is one thing, but looking like a shambles, as Ferrari have done on so many different occasions this year, that, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is not good enough. Why don't you take a break? Lewis Hamilton said while you make that decision. This is F1, for Pete's sake. Make decisions quickly. It's a story told in tense, the oldest truism in F1 history. So what are we doing? You want me to waste away my tyre offset in the dirty air of Charles Leclerc? What are you doing? This is nonsense. What, Carlos Sainz is coming for it? What, do you want me to let him through as well? Lewis Hamilton said, the man who they've given tens of millions with a view to bring Scuderia Ferrari back to the mountaintop. Championships is what we're talking about here, and they're not even close. The car is rubbish. Frederick Vasseur kept on saying that they've changed 99% of the car in the final year of the rule and reg set. Does that even make sense, chat? Does that even make sense? Non-rhetorical question. Why would you invest so much in the final year of this rule and it just that's nonsense. My son is 4. He knows better than that. This is the law of diminishing returns. Surely it makes more sense to put all your eggs in the 2026 design philosophy basket now. Does it not? Now they've done all that, 99% everything changed, and it feels like an exercise in futility. They've made the car worse. They ended the championship last year. Ferrari did 14 points adrift of McLaren. Now already 10 rounds deep, they are 191 points. 191. What? What are we doing here? This makes no sense. And people want to say Ferrari stands extremists and fundamentalists want to say that Ferrari need to keep Frederick Vasseur. Legend that is Martin Brundle says that would be the worst thing that they could do to get rid of him. Well, I would flip that on its head. How can they keep him? It's been nonsense. Then you know how this is a thing. There is no F1 smoke without F1 fire. Rumour and speculation, they might say, but Gazzetta dello Sport and Corriere della Sera, those 2 publications are linked to Elkann, CEO of Scuderia Ferrari, chairman of Stellantis, the parent company. Do you think those stories could have gotten out without Elkann's say so? Without him having greenlit them? I very much doubt it. Ergo, Elkann is desperate to have anybody at this stage supersede Frederick Vasseur. Now, they said once upon a time Frederick Vasseur did. Don't worry about upgrades. This is about setups. Now, all of a sudden, he's U-turned and said we're bringing upgrades as soon as Austria. Yeah, you better be, mate, lest you want to lose yourself a job of team principal of the red car with the yellow badge, black prancing horse on top. Oh, and by the way, EasyG, go on then, EasyG. Let me indulge you for a second. Maybe TP change by itself isn't the solution. Maybe that's not the sole cause. Maybe it's a plethora of things. But I think that might be the first. I've got a feeling that changing the team principle might be the first thing that needs to get sorted amongst many other changes of material variety, a material consequence even. Oh, and by the way, Toto the boy who cried wolf has come out and he's had some things to say. He said something like this, and I'm paraphrasing. Listen, we've got two drivers, but they need to both know that the things that are going on in McLaren, incidents, taking each other off, this is not 2015 or 16. We won't tolerate it. They need to know that this is Team Mercedes, team ethos above individualism. Like, what is he talking about here? Mate, Toto, your time is coming. When Kimi Antonelli is fast enough to challenge King George Russell of Kingsley and Norfolk, don't think for a second that those two won't indulge in a cheeky love kiss. Of course they will. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when, not if. Toto, the boy who cried wolf. What you want to concern yourself on, sir, is trying to sign a Maximilian Verstappen or dealing with King George Russell and paying him, giving him the respect that his performance season to date so deserves. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about Maximilian Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, there's a chap over at Aston Martin who's had some things to say about his future destination. The context here is key. Max Verstappen has told you on a gazillion occasions that there's a couple of things that he might need if he's to stay at Red Bull through to 2028 when his contract is due to come to an end. Those are these: a semblance of harmony within the team, a car capable of winning races and therefore championships, and the personnel capable of building a car, and a team therefore capable of winning races and championships. Jonathan Wheatley, since Max Verstappen said that, gone. Adrian Newey, gone. Fallows, gone. What are we doing here, chat? Where are these god tier minds of which Maximilian Verstappen speaks? Where's the car? Understeer settings as far as the RB21 still, yet and still can't ride curbs. Yeah, it's quick under specific circumstance, but just like the W13 many moons ago, it is a diva. You need to set it up perfectly. It needs the right climactic circumstance. It can't race around a contoured track like, say, Singapore as an example. And is that how you win championships? Well, if you read Adrian Newey's book, How to Build a Car, probably not. You build a car that can race quickly around the most frequently occurring physics challenges. Now that 9 times out of 10 in 2025 is medium to high speed turns, is it not? And I would contend that the MCL 39 is infinitely better than the RB21 at that type of twisty. Now, do you think Max Verstappen's not going to be looking elsewhere, particularly as 2025 is around the corner? New rules and regs, emphasis now on the power unit, 50% of which will be electric, 50% of which will be ICE, internal combustion. Now, you think you won't be looking at Mercedes? Bearing in mind what happened in 2014, split turbo hybrid settings. Bearing in mind James Allison is saying that there is a feeling around the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth that they're doing as they did in 2014, that they have the whip hand, they hold the red pen of durable competitive advantage at the altar of their 2026 power unit. Maximilian Verstappen would be daft not to be looking at pastures anew, especially when you know that Toto, the boy who cried wolf, will be courting him. Negotiations happened last year at the Miami Grand Prix. So too they happened over the course of the summer break. So what's changed? Plus change, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury. The more things change, the more things stay the same as far as suitors of Max Verstappen. But throw another entrant into that, and that entrant has a name. That entrant's name is Lawrence Stroll's Aston Martin. The Daily Mail wrote many moons ago that there was talk of a $1 billion contract through to retirement that they wanted to offer Max Verstappen to sign for them. Reunite with the last airbender Adrian Newey. Reunite with the one that they call Honda engine manufacturer, exclusive engine manufacturer of Aston Martin from 2026. Why wouldn't he do that? Well, this chap, Aston Martin simulator driver Daniel Juncadella, says why would he leave? Max Verstappen is nothing if not a Red Bull man, that he only cares about winning, and if he only cares about winning, then he maximises for his probability of that by staying with Christian Horner at his team, the Bulls that are red. This article reads thus: Aston Martin are not putting together a $1 billion deal for Max Verstappen, says Juncadella. He's not having it. He thinks it's all bogus, that they're blowing smoke up our ASS. Although Gazzetta dello Sport was also reported on the 1 billion, didn't they? It wasn't Daily Mail only. I think Lawrence Stroll desperately wants to get himself a Max Verstappen. Why would he not at this stage, chat? You've heard Lawrence Stroll said, I want to win. When I get passionate about something, that's all I want to do in it. Victory is my only concern. Well, this dude went and told the Natchez YouTube channel, these are things that have to be taken with a grain of salt. 1 billion deal for Max Verstappen? You must be having a laugh. And this guy works and tests for Aston Martin, by the way. It's like that in the end. When a rumour suddenly comes out, he says, and that's like Verstappen to Aston Martin. Who in their right mind, he continues, quote, would think that Max Verstappen wants to go to Aston Martin, or that it's not even, or that they'd even pay him 1 billion in the first instance? Do you think the guy really cares about money? Quote, Max Verstappen only cares about winning. The team for Max Verstappen is Red Bull, and there's no doubt about that. He continues, quote, look, obviously drivers have performance clauses in their contract, and there are points in the year that tend to be around the summertime when those things can materialise, he told Sky Sports F1. I think there's a relationship with the driver that has to go beyond a piece of paper, however. This is Christian Horner talking now. Go on, you tell me what you think, Franz. Do it see live. I'm not sure. You know, I think Max Verstappen will be having conversations. We know a couple different things, not quite for a fact, but as near as makes no difference, that Max Verstappen already has paranoia about the collaboration between Ford and Red Bull powertrains. Ford? What? Not to be some sort of automotive snob, but come on. Ford, no chance over Mercedes if indeed you have the option. Behave yourself. Nobody's going to tell me that Max can't maximise his chances of winning a championship of the drivers' variety in 2026 by going to pastures of new and Mercedes. Gonna get techie. People have said the same about Hamilton to Mercedes in 100%, Franz. But then Lewis Hamilton made the jump, didn't he? And again, it was a works team, right? Sometimes you got to go and join a works team that has an exclusive deal. Don't see Red Bull as a works deal necessarily. It's a collaboration. It's Ford. It's the legacy of Honda, to my mind, and I'm not sure that that's the pole sitter as far as winning championships in 2026. Neither, not of the constructors, and definitely not of the drivers' variety. If your name is Max Verstappen, what are we doing here?